We're in a moment where hopefully we can finally do something about climate change. Young activists actually organizing today around the world. London has a big protest going on. There's people in Congress who finally take it seriously. But what must actually be done to address this problem? Joining us now, Phill MacDuff, writer on economics and social policy for The Guardian. Phill, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Glad to have you here. I recently read your piece, Ending Climate Change Requires the End of Capitalism. Have we got the stomach for it? So let's get to the spoilers. Have we got the stomach for it?
I don't think we necessarily do. I think part of the issue is that if you look at the people who oppose doing something about climate change, you have a minority of people who are the kind of the enemies, the Bolsonaros, the people who just want to burn down the rainforest because they want to burn down the rainforest, that kind of comic evil thing. But what you also have is a much, much wider range of people who are perfectly in favor of doing something about climate change as long as it doesn't mean they actually personally have to do anything or it's going to cost them anything at all. And that's, I think, one of the big problems that we have, that we've got to face, especially within what we can broadly describe as the capitalist system, is that there's just too many people for whom the personal cost of doing something is real and immediate, and the kind of the future cost, will our children have a planet left to live on, is still just far too abstract for them. They don't see it as being meaningful in the same way that gas prices might go up is to them.
And honestly, it seems like there's a lot of politicians that also might fall into that category, that they would be willing to do something as long as it doesn't endanger the chances of them getting reelected and doesn't cost too much, that sort of thing. In the article, you actually refer to what's going on sort of from the top as being an example of gaslighting. Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the gaslighting is essentially, it's a term of emotional abuse. It's basically when somebody in an abusive relationship with somebody else basically denies reality to make them feel crazy. And I think it applies in this case because it's especially true because you have the people who seem to know what's going on are kind of the 14-year-olds, the 16-year-olds, the people who are sort of just emerging into their political awareness and becoming aware of reality. And they're going, this is crazy. This is, what are you doing with our planet, mom and dad? And everyone's going, no, it's fine. And because they're kind of, because they're essentially denying the reality that people can see. The people can see that things are literally in some cases on fire. And everyone's saying, no, it's not. This is still fine. We don't have to do anything about it, or we're doing okay. Just trust us. So that's sort of what I mean by gaslighting. It's this attempt to get for people who are already in power to tell the people who want them to do something, no, it's fine, we're in charge, when everyone's actually looking at them and saying, it's clearly not fine. It isn't. Honestly, it's not.
Yeah. And at the same time, maybe this is an example of that, or a way to further that mission. You have people responding to plans intending to do something about climate change, like the Green New Deal, presenting it as a radical plan, giving you ridiculous estimates of how much it's going to cost, all of that. You talk in the piece about how you don't consider it to be a radical plan. Why is that, and what would a radical plan actually look like?
Well, I mean, I think you have to sort of put that into the context of what's actually going on with climate change. The reason it's not a radical plan is because it's happening far too late. We have about 12 years to basically what people are saying is, if we make some absolutely heroic assumptions about what we can do next, we have about 12 years to keep us this side of absolute catastrophe. And those heroic assumptions assume that we're going to do stuff like reduce all carbon emissions by 50% by 2050 or something like that. To do that that requires an incredible amount of radical change. It requires ultimately, fundamentally, just readdressing our entire relationship with the planet, with capital, with oil. We have to do things like make a decision that we're not going to dig up any more coal immediately. But that's just we can't do it in order to achieve certain things. So the Green New Deal, while it is radical in terms of we've looked at from where we are, in terms of where we need to get to in order to stop climate change from happening, it's not really that radical at all. And that's sort of the problem. We are in a situation where the changes that need to occur, the realistic changes that need to occur, are so far beyond what anybody in power is willing to countenance that even a relatively moderate level of reform like the Green New Deal isn't radical enough. Or to put it another way, even a quite radical level of reform like the Green New Deal isn't anywhere near what's actually required. So do you see what I mean there? It is radical, but compared to what needs to happen, it's nowhere near.
Exactly, and anyone watching this, I would recommend that you take a look at the article by Phill, Ending Climate Change Requires the End of Capitalism, available at The Guardian. Phill MacDuff, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you.
We're gonna take a short break here. When we come back, university takes action to do something about reparations.